we want to talk about the 16-team playoff that is inevitable at this point. That's kind of how we want to start the show. So, I know you and I have talked about this in the past about the idea of the 16-team playoff, and I want to hear your thoughts as far as what they have now proposed with it, because I think both of us are kind of on the same page as far as this is a good thing for Ohio State, just
Yeah.
in general, because it's easier to like make the playoff, easier
Yeah.
than it already is. But it also is a bad thing for college football at large, or at least in my view. So
Yeah.
I want to hear your opinion based off of how the SEC and the Big Ten want it set up, because that's who's driving this boat, is those two conferences.
I'm completely against. Like what I think. Did we talk? I think we talked about this before.
Yeah.
And so I'm just gonna say what I said back then for all those who didn't hear it last time. I'm completely against it. I completely hate it. I think that and mind you, even though it favors Ohio State and it favors the conference that I don't cheer for the Big Ten, but we're part of, it helps the SEC. I don't like that. I am not in favor of you. I'm not in favor of teams being placed into the playoff automatically. I think that takes
Yeah.
you having to earn it. And
Agreed.
football is about earning things. You that yard you get on the field, you earn that.
Which, for those that don't know, the SEC and the Big Ten are proposing that each conference would automatically get 4 teams into the playoff. So half the playoff field is set by those two conferences. Which, to your point, you need to be able to earn those spots. Like, you don't need to be given pity spots to Illinois or Iowa or Wisconsin just because they're in the Big Ten. Like, they need to earn it. Like, we don't need some 9-3 team from the Big Ten or the SEC getting into the playoff because they've beaten Northwestern and Maryland and Rutgers and lost to Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, whoever. My point is, you need to have quality wins, and you need to show that you're actually a quality team in order to earn a chance to play for a national championship. In the way that this is being presented, I don't think that would happen. Now, obviously, both conferences are very large. Despite it being called the Big Ten, they've got 18 teams in it. So I understand their argument that because the conferences are so big, they're not going to be watered down. They're going to have elite talent year in and year out, which is probably true. But it shouldn't be an automatic deal. Like, you should have to earn your way into playing for a national championship. And if it had been a 4-team playoff for each conference, Ohio State, the Big Ten already had 4 teams in.
Mm-hmm.
I thought all those teams deserve to be in it this year, but I'm not going to say that is going to be guaranteed every year. Like, not every year is the Big Ten going to be good enough to have 3 11-1 teams and a 10-2 team, or even 3 10-2 teams, 1 11-1 team, whatever the case may be. So I am all for giving the ACC, the Big 12, and the other not Power 4 conferences a better chance to make the playoff.
On top of that, because I want to read this to you. When we talk about these automatic bids, of course, the Big 12 being one of them, getting those 4 bids. This is the over-under in the Big 12 right now from the top to bottom. 8.5, 8.5, 8.5, 7.5, 7.5, 7.5, 7.5, 7.5, 6.5, and on down. Now, granted, by the way, everyone, if you want to make some money, futures right now on Arizona State hit the over on 8.5. That's going to happen, and I promise you, that's going to happen.
Interesting. Okay.
I think Texas. I'm close to doing Texas Tech. I really am, but
okay,
because you can make a lot of money from it if you're right. But I look at things like that, man. There's not going to be 4 teams this year, I think, that coming out of the Big 12 that are going to deserve it. When you look at the ACC, I have Clemson as being one of my top 4 teams in the country. So, yeah, cool. Miami, understandable. Syracuse, I guess we'll see this season. There's been a lot of buzz for them happening. I'm not sure if I believe in it or not, but they're getting a lot of buzz. I'm not sure why. But my thing is, I don't believe there are 4 teams that automatically qualify to be in there. And the truth of the matter is, man, depending on the year, if you're getting 4, there's going to be years where the Big Ten or the SEC have 6 teams better than your third best team, whether that be in the ACC or that is in the Big 12. I mean, you look last year where South Carolina landed. I think South Carolina was a playoff team. South Carolina was better than Boise. South Carolina was. I mean, honestly, man, if you asked me if South Carolina got in the field, you don't think they're better than Boise?
I don't. I also don't think their
Oh, you don't
resume was
believe
as
that.
good as Boise State.
If Boise was in the SEC with that same schedule, they're not doing what they do. They're not.
Hey, you simply just don't lose 3 games.
That's easy to say when you're Boise.
Sure, and that is, and you know what? That is part of Greg Sankey's argument. Is he thinks that the committee is rewarding people for not losing as opposed to actually playing good competition, which I think is a bit of both. And I also think it's a foul. It's tricky because the committee changes every year. Like there's new people who are deciding who should be in the national championship or in the hunt for a national championship. So he can't really use that argument for every single year because the guys are different. They all have different criteria. There's a reason where there's not really a defined criteria. Like they have guidelines that they go by, but there's a reason why they don't have concrete criteria that they follow year after year because they want to be intentionally ambiguous because new guys and gals join the committee every year. So I understand that. Look, like I said, this is simply a power grab between the SEC and the Big Ten. Let's just call it what it is. There are years where they will 100% deserve having 4 teams in. Each conference could deserve having 4 teams in. I thought the committee got it right last year. I thought they got the appropriate teams in. I don't see, and I mean, that's the whole reason why the SEC wants to push this so they can get more money, more revenue, have more teams in. They didn't deserve to have 4 teams in last year. I don't think South Carolina or Alabama or Ole Miss deserved to be in. Those teams had some bad losses, and they weren't
multiple
their quality wins weren't exactly multiple bad losses, and their quality wins weren't good enough to override those bad losses. So you've got to take the good with the bad.
What do you think are the benefits of it outside of money?
I was just saying that's the biggest benefit for them is getting the revenue. I honestly, you could say from a college football fan perspective, from just a pure fan, the only other benefit is just more games. Like you get to watch more games from what theoretically should be the best teams. Like they are playing, they're putting matchups from teams that are in the best conferences that don't normally play each other. And it gives us an opportunity to watch more quality football. However, I can think of more detriments than I can positives for this format, quite frankly. I mean, think of it, and it's very clear that college football does not care about player safety. When you keep stretching out the format like this, you're just adding more games. Ohio State just had the longest college football season ever. They played 16 games. That's all. That's what a full NFL season was just 3 years ago. They are, and with a 16-team format, I understand there's probably going to be more buys, but if you're a P5 school that all of a sudden, a non-P4 school that all of a sudden starts to, they get in because they win their conference, but they win their conference championship, they're not getting to buy. So theoretically, if it were to ever happen, they could end up playing 17, 18 games if they were to, get deep into the playoff and have some upsets. That is way too many football games. That's just too many. That's risking injury. That's not safe.
What? All right. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate here when we talk about that.
Please.
When we talk about player safety. What if I was to say, I don't want to say I don't care about the player safety, but
yeah, please don't say that.
No. But it's moot to me because we're not just talking about simple student athletes anymore. These are there's a lot of kids with big dollars behind them. It was one of the reasons why, like when Cam Ward sat out that second half, and understandably so, but he sat out that second half like in the bowl game. I'm sitting there wondering, if I'm the guy that pays you, right? I'm putting money in your pocket, and we signed a contract. Are you in breach of that contract at that point? I mean, at this point, man, we are talking about young professionals now. Now, I understand that the season gets longer, But I look at what happened with Ohio State this year. We had injuries, but I can name out other years when we had much. There are a lot of it. We've had years where we had worse injuries and much more.
Ohio State had two starting offensive linemen go down to season-ending injuries.
Yes, but we've had seasons in shorter seasons where we've seen more injuries than we did this previous season. And I think that now we're talking about you have to adjust. Now, Are you able to like Ryan Day did with his running back, or actually Coach Lachlan did with his running backs? Are you able to get them rest? Are you able to have a steady pace throughout the season so that guys are not out there too much? Again, in rotating and things of that matter. Again, I do agree with you, but I do think there's another side to that. On this also, because I want to ask you this: do you think this is a way for them? Because when we first saw the 14 playoff, and mind you, it was P5 back then, of course. There was always going to be a conference that was left out. We all knew that.
Yep.
Is this kind of like a shifting to going back to that? Because now we have P4, and it's like, okay, well, we can solely keep it to these conferences. Are you opposed to that?
Yes, but I also don't think it's necessarily doing that because they are giving, an opportunity for the group of 6 at this point. It's not group of 5, it's group of 6. They can still get into the playoff. I do think they should. There might be a couple years where there are 2 group of 6 teams that are good enough to get in.
Good God, I hope not.
I hope there is.
But my point is, they'll get pummeled.
Maybe, but I think it's better for the sport when you have a variety of teams that have a shot to get in the playoff. And that's another argument for the 16-team playoff. You're expanding that field, so you're expanding the opportunities to have a different college football championship. Because for years, let's face it, the last decade or so, only a couple handfuls of teams can win a national championship.
Yeah.
Just based off of the talent and the way the format was. I mean, you're looking at the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the LSUs, teams like that who are constantly at the top year in and year out. And now that you have NIL, and now that you have the transfer portal, and now that you have an expanded playoff field, you have teams like, Notre Dame who, hadn't played for a national championship in over 10 years. They play for national championship. You have a team like Penn State who seemingly missed out on the playoff every year because Ohio State was just frankly better. There was Ohio State or Michigan that was getting in over them. They get in the playoff. They make a Final Four. A team like Indiana, who was the Cinderella this year, gets in. Boise State, Arizona State, both of those teams, no one expected them to do much, and they got in. So that is an argument for the 16-team playoff. The issue is when you start capping the amount of spots that are left because you're giving a 4th spot to a 9-3 or 8-4, God forbid, Big Ten or SEC team. That's what I have a problem with.
All right, so focusing on the Big Ten, do you believe? Well, no, I think we both believe that every year now, in this format, Ohio State was always going to have 4 teams that make this playoff, right? And let's just say there was no automatic bid. So Ohio State was probably more than.
You mean the Big Ten? Or you said Ohio State would automatically get in? Yeah.
I'm sorry. The Big Ten would have 4 teams that would make the playoff, depending on the season. I'm sorry. Almost every season.
Yeah, I say at least 2 or at minimum 2, most likely 3, 4. It can definitely happen.
Do you think there's any negatives to the conference in doing that?
I do think that it's a negative. There may not be a negative specific to the Big Ten itself because they're automatically locking in a better chance for one of their programs to win a national championship. They're automatically locking in more revenue because more games are being played, at these stadiums, and they're getting more TV revenue from the playoff itself. But from a national perspective, I do think that there's a detriment. I don't think that you should be. They're trying to make the playoff even more like they expanded it to. They're expanding it to 16 under the guise of opening it up, but it's really falling under the umbrella of some more exclusivity. because they're limited. Half of the field is already spoken for. Automatically, every year, you're getting 4 SEC and 4 Big Ten teams in, no matter what. No matter how bad the conference is in a certain year, they are going to automatically get 4 teams in, which I think is wrong. Like you said at the top, you should have to earn your way into this field. They should not be handing out spots for any reason.
No, like I like honestly, if there was in a given year where let's say in the Big Ten you had 3 10-win teams, an 11-1 team, and a 9-3 team, and then maybe a 12-0 team. Like it's just it was a really good top of year. I'm gonna sit here and tell you, Ohio State should get those 6 teams should be in. And if the SEC went to the same thing, I would sit here and tell you, they'll throw those 6 teams in there also. And yeah, that's 12 out of one conference, right? Or at least 10 to 12. But just as you said, I don't agree. I would be okay with this if they said 2.
Yeah,
but and I guess it doesn't really matter because usually you are a top 2 team in your conference, you're going to make it, unless you're the Big 12. But
yeah,
but I just can't. It's hard to get behind it. It's hard to get behind it. I don't necessarily dislike it. I just don't like the automatic bids. Because I think it sets a bad precedent, a very bad.
Agreed. I agree, and it also discourages teams from scheduling great games, quite frankly. Like, why would you schedule – like, if you're Ohio State, why would you schedule Texas in the future?
We disagree on that.
There would be no incentive into doing that because, okay, you know what? All I need to do is finish in the top 4 of my conference. So I'm gonna have these cupcake warm up games. I'm gonna face Grambling State, Ohio, and Akron every freaking year, so I can have my guys stay healthy and ready to go for Big Ten play. Why the hell would I need to up my resume by playing an SEC team? One of the upper tier teams in the non-conference. Why would I need to play a Texas or an Alabama or a Georgia? Some of these teams that Ohio State has lined up in the future. Why would I need to schedule those when all I need to do is finish 10-2 in my conference to guarantee myself a playoff spot? It's disappointing, and that robs college football fans of great matchups.
I think it still incentivizes it because let's take like Oregon this season or Michigan this season, right? 2 teams that have very weak schedules. I think that let's say if the Wolverines had they got Oklahoma on the schedule. I'll use Oregon. Let's say for Oregon they had Texas A&M on their schedule.
Okay.
Now throughout the season, they play Penn State this season. Let's say if they lost that game, and then let's say if they some unranked team just happened to beat them. As football, it happens. So then when you look at their non-con, it's like, okay, well, they don't really have anything. And then because they have it, and they'll say throughout the season, they struck like some teams go up and down, like that 2022 Georgia team that was up and down throughout the season. They still won games, but they're up and down. You might need that Texas A&M game. Now, even though I don't necessarily disagree with you.
Why would you need that Texas A&M game? Because if it's just dictated off of the conference standings, you wouldn't need it. Then why would you need to play that? Because that's just risking more injury, another non-conference loss. Why would you need that? Like, it's disincentivizing these great programs from facing each other.
Do you think this is
nonsense?
Do you think that maybe we're kind of just the human condition naturally looks towards all the negatives. Do you think we're kind of looking towards that a negative like that when in all reality it's something that we're kind of overblowing that's not going to happen? We're just really
no. I mean that specifically no, because some programs have already indicated that they're going to start moving up that way. I mean, I already mentioned it. Greg Sankey already brought up that comment. Like, he already made a comment about that. So the SEC is likely going to start. Like, I wouldn't be shocked. Ohio State has, after they play Texas these next couple of years, they have Alabama coming up. I wouldn't be shocked if Alabama pulled out of that game.
I don't want to hear that from Greg Sankey. For most of my life, if not all, in week 11, I see what the SEC plays.
And that's what and you know what?
And
that's
the
what they're
Big Ten, it's illegal to even do that.
Well, yeah, but you know what? That's what they're going to be still incentivized to keep doing. There's no incentive to not do that. Alabama, plays Bethune-Cookman every freaking year before the Iron Bowl because there's no reason not to. Like it's a warm up for a game that you actually need to win because it's in conference. And if you have the 16-team playoff that guarantees 4 outright spots to the SEC and Big Ten, then there's no reason either one of those conferences are going to try to schedule big non-conference matchups. None.
Okay.